Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of my favourite people, some of the most talented stars, and people like Raymond and Mr Timpkins. This is a cabaret review that I saw on Wednesday night and I thought was spectacular. Joining us on the phone now is half of this tremendous double act. Mr Timpkins, how are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you.
Congratulations. I'd never seen you before. In fact, I'd never heard of you, which says more about me than it does you. You absolutely blew me away and arguably stole the show. Congratulations on this act. It's brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it's you and your mate stood on stage, basically doing smart-ass wordplay, playing with songs, and just making us laugh for 20 minutes. That's it, summed up.
That is it. I'm not sure it's very smart, to be honest. I find it quite sort of quite childish and immature. But I guess that's from being too close to it to really be able to appreciate it as other people do.
From my perspective, I'm a guy who spends my life going around theatres, seeing shows, having to sit through all kinds of crap. And laughing is something that I struggle to do a lot of the time because I've mostly heard it and seen it all before. Your act, I hadn't. I mean, there were some gags that I literally belly laughed because you don't hear it much in a theatre now, those big guffaws, do you?
No, I guess you don't really. I think a lot of the fun in our act comes from the fact that we're having fun. I think that wherever we are, whatever the audience is doing, we're always enjoying the performance. We enjoy the slapstick of it. We enjoy the silliness of it. We've got a good camaraderie off stage as well as on. And it's just an enjoyable thing to do. I think, and I hope that comes across when people sit there and watch it.
Absolutely, it does. What also comes across is how complicated your show is. The wrong card in the wrong place at the wrong time could literally screw up the entire act, couldn't it?
Well, the good thing about the act, and yes, you're right, there is a real great need for when putting away and when setting up the next night that you do need to go through everything and make sure they're in the right place at to be removed from the box at the right time. But of course, the nature of the act means that if there is a mistake at any point during the show, it's only a few seconds and the next joke's there, so yeah. It doesn't tend to linger too long.
At what point did you sit down and find the act, or did it find you? I mean, to just come up with this seems like an outrageous idea that you would just be hearing music and then put words to it and letters to it, and before you know it, you've got something that you can tour day in and day out throughout the year. How did that happen?
It came about. I mean, Andy plays Raymond in the double act. We were together in a couple of bands in the mid '80s. And I got asked to host and compare a Battle of the Bands competition in our local town down in Portsmouth, and it became the South Coast Battle of the Bands. And what happened was you had 4 bands playing throughout the evening and a panel of judges from local media. When the bands had finished, of course, the judges would need to go away and consult and discuss points and who was going to win. And so you could have a 10-minute, 15-minute interval, or you could fill the dead air. So. I decided I'd fill the dead air. My wife found a Rolf Harris stylophone. I know it's probably not very ethical to say Rolf Harris, but a stylophone, which is a small electronic keyboard which he developed at the end of the 70s. The end of the 60s, early 70s, in the charity shop for £2. So she went and purchased it, and being from a musical background, I started picking out tunes on it in this little interval, and then Andy joined me the following week. Dressed in lingerie, playing a guitar, and the whole thing sort of sprung from there. I mean, the first actual visual gag, if you like, that we developed was "Take That Look Off Your Face," where it has been unfortunately used by another famous act on his Christmas DVD, unfortunately, which hasn't blown it for us, but could have. So "Take That Look Off Your Face" was the first visual gag that we did, and then I guess it all sprang from there, really.
The anorak in me did worry about that. You've got some amazing jokes, some of them with people like Gok One that I'm not going to give away. You can't really copyright them, can you? I mean, how do you protect your act? Because somebody literally could tape it and copy it.
Yeah, we have had a couple of incidents of, let's say, more popular, more famous comedians, TV comedians, touring comedians stealing certain jokes, certain routines, in fact, which hurts. there is nothing you can do about it. You cannot copyright. I mean, we did start a proceeding against one of these acts, but the expense of it was far beyond our bank balance, so that immediately stopped. So there isn't much you can do about it. I mean, the only thing really you can do about it is keep producing more and more material, which is what we try to do, and just sort of drop things that people might think have come from elsewhere.
They don't care. There's no honour and integrity in that. What's your life like on the road? Because I can't imagine it's terribly glamorous having to travel from one theatre to the next. As fun as it is during your bit on stage, you've got to fight the traffic. Is that tough, that side of it?
It can be tough. I mean, the thing with the current tour with Paul is that we are, although the tour spans over 2 months, it's generally 3. I mean, the first week was 5 nights, but generally it's 3, 4, sometimes only 2 nights in the week. So we the main bulk of our work is comedy club work. You know, we're not generally touring theatres all the time, and that's why it's such a privilege to be playing some of these theatres, because without someone like Paul taking us on tour, it'd be a very rare occasion for us to play them.
What also interests me is thinking about when you're doing these clubs, if they're not paying attention. I mean, yours is an act that you've really got to watch and listen to, because if you just nod off for 10 seconds, you're going to miss 2 gags. Is it tough when you're in pubs and people are talking, for example?
I think we score points with volume. You can really halt any conversation in the room just by getting the volume right. We don't tend to suffer too much with chat. I mean, there's obviously occasions where you do suffer with that, but I think 99% of the time, even if people aren't for some reason not really enjoying what we do, they can't really talk over it.
Right. And the other question I've got to ask is, how do you remember it all? Is it just years of doing it and adding bits in bit by bit by bit? Because, I mean, if you try to remember the whole thing at once, it would be virtually impossible, wouldn't it? I mean, there's so much going on in that 20 minutes.
Yeah, there is, and you're exactly right. What it comes down to is adding, small sections at a time, really. Sometimes just a couple of tracks a month, So we do try and add 4 or 5 minutes a year, which to normal comics, of course, stand-up comic or any comic wouldn't be a lot of material. But when you break that down into number of gags, in 4 or 5 minutes, when some of our gags are 2 to 3 seconds long, it's a lot of work goes into that.
And are you always listening to Steve Wright in the afternoon and you hear a song and you go, oh my God, listen to that lyric, and you're just forever listening and putting stuff in?
We do have periods where we deliberately listen to music. I mean, there is a useful chart show on a Saturday afternoon, which Tony Blackburn now presents on Radio 2, where he'll play, the top 20 of a couple of years,
Yeah.
That tends to be useful. It's not something that we do continuously. I mean, we do. The problem with doing that is that you do tend to find lots of ideas from the 70s and the 80s, which we've got a lot of those. We tend to like to try and update or keep up to date a little bit with what we're doing.
I really wanted to talk to you because it's so clever what you do, and I don't want to give it away. That's the thing. It's almost impossible. What I can do, though, is tell people to go to your website or go to YouTube, put in Raymond and Mr Timpkins, and you'll see how brilliant this act is. Is it thrilling when you've sort of done the marathon and you've got to the end of the act and it all goes well?
Yeah, it's certainly something you can enjoy throughout the set. As far as performing it goes, I think we both really enjoy performing it. And it's wonderful when you get a good ovation like we did in Mansfield on Wednesday night. I mean, that's always what you're aiming for. But there are other great times to be gained from the actual performance of it, which we always love doing.
It's been a thrill talking to you. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see your act again. It's brilliant. As I say, go and look on YouTube. Go to their website. Raymond and Mr Timpkins is the act. It's one of the most clever bits of cabaret I've seen in many, many years. It was born to be in Las Vegas. Do you have any interest doing it somewhere else, or are you happy doing it over here and just keeping it quiet with your family?
I'd love to do it anywhere, mate, to be honest. If someone came up with an offer of going to Vegas, I'd jump at the chance.
But, I mean, it's a Vegas act, isn't it? It was born to be in one of those showrooms. I can just see it in my mind's eye.
although it is incredibly British in its stupidity, I'm not sure how much. I mean, we have played to expats around the world.
Yeah.
I'm not sure a specific American audience would.
I don't know about that. There's a guy who does big business there called Carrot Top, who isn't a million miles away. It's different, very different, but it's also very similar. You've got to keep up with him. You've got to pay. Yeah, you got to pay attention, and that's the thing I loved about your show. Is as silly as it is, it's very, very clever, and I think that's only to be admired. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate talking to you, Tony from Raymond and Mr Timpkins. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Alex. Not a problem.